Hey, my name is Sydney and I'm getting rid of a lot of books today. Normally I don't do huge unhauls like this because when I don't like a book or I no longer want to keep it, I will put it in my car in a little bag that I have filled with books at all times just in case I run into any little free libraries and I put them in there. But I just moved apartments and I carried all over 800 books that I own up the stairs into my new bookcases, and there are just so many books that I carried them in and I was like, you know what? I no longer want to have these, so these can go to better homes. And even with all of the books that I'm getting rid of and all of the new bookshelves I just put in, I don't have enough space. So I tried to be really harsh with my books and see which ones I can get rid of. And I have two gigantic boxes at my feet right now filled with books that I no longer want to keep. All of the books I unhaul today will either be donated to Little Free Libraries or to my mom's building, which has a mini library for free for its residents. I'm gonna rapid fire through all of these, but you're gonna see some pretty consistent themes, such as I've read the book and I will never read it again, or I picked it up thinking I would like it, and just as I've grown as a person and as a reader, I'm no longer going to like it. A lot of this is going to include sad books. I was an English major in college and there was a time where sad books were everything, and I no longer read for sadness. There are also a lot of books in here that I was gifted 5-10 years ago and I've held on to all this time, but I no longer really need to keep. Alright, let's get to the unhaul. This is my most recent unhaul. I found it in a Little Free Library a while ago and I finally picked it up. It's marketed as a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but she's the Beast, and the whole world building is really, really cool, but it's not really a Beauty and the Beast retelling. So the world building is really cool, but I don't like the story that happened in it because essentially the guy falls in love with both the dog and the women, and I'm like, this did not need to happen. So I guess it was a wild ride, but I'm never reading this again. In a similar vein, Briar Girls is a Sleeping Beauty retelling with bi representation in the main character. Honestly, when I read this book, I thought I read 10 different books in one. Like, it was just absolutely wild. I had no idea what was going to happen at any point, and it was just like, it was a wild ride, but like not in a good way, so I'm never gonna read this again, even though the cover is gorgeous. This is Trevor Noah's memoir. I got it for college because I was in the education program and I was going to use this in the classroom. I read it in college for this project, and then I recently reread it and I have no need to read it again. I found this in a Little Free Library almost 2 years ago and I've just never picked it up. Same with this one, and I'm really not that into vampires. I don't know why I thought I would be. This book sounds incredible and honestly is a really cool cover, but it seems a little intense and I just haven't reached for it in the 2 years I've owned it. Same thing for this book. I'm a huge Regency romance reader, but I accidentally have duplicates of these Julia Londons. I have the hardback of this version as well as the paperback of the original version, so I just no longer need to keep this. This was a DNF after like 4 pages. I just could not handle the writing style. I've held on to this for 2 years. I don't think I'm ever going to read it. My contemporary romances, I like them to be happy, not sad. I have other Circus books that I want to read, and this one is just the least interesting of them all. I read her other series and it wasn't for me, but I found this Little Free Library book before I read the series, and I don't know why I've kept it for so long. I don't think I'm going to give her another try. I read this and I thought it was okay. I think the cover is absolutely beautiful, but I don't think I'm ever going to reread it again, and I don't think I'm going to move on to the second book, so it's time for it to go to someone else. I'm kind of mad because I bought this one at full price, which doesn't normally happen, and I especially got it signed at a bookstore in New York, and so I really wanted to like it, but I did not like this book at all, and I thought about keeping it because the cover is fun and I bought it at full price, but honestly I hate looking at it, so it's getting out of here. This was like a Lord of the Flies but with women, and it had the potential to be a really, really awesome book, but I hated the way that everything turned out, and even though I love this cover, I don't think I'm ever going to reread it again, so it's time for it to go to someone else. I picked this up because it looked crazy in a Little Free Library, but I just never reached for it. I just have too many YA books that I'm never going to reach for. I picked this one up because the interior is so cool. Like, all of the pages are green and have these really cool illustrations inside them, but this is part of a huge series and I just never felt inclined to find the rest of the series, so I think I'm going to give it up for somebody else to find. I bought this at a library book sale because I thought the cover just looked really cool, and I love pretty much anything with dragons, but I have too many other fantasy dragon books that I need to read, and this one just, it didn't make the cut. Again, a super cool cover, but honestly I just have too many YA books that I need to read. I really wanted to like The Lost Apothecary. Not only is the cover just absolutely beautiful, I honestly wanted to keep it just for that, but it goes between 2 time periods about people in the past that are murdering husbands to get wives out of bad situations, and then somebody today in modern day London trying to figure out who killed all these people. And I love the idea of it so much, but it just talked too much about motherhood and wanting children and having, you know, miscarriages and all this stuff. And as somebody who does not want children, I just found that to be just too overwhelming in this book, and I was really disappointed in that. But I'm sure if you want children and the mystery still intrigues you, you might really love this book, and I think I'm gonna give it up for somebody like that to find. There was a time when I thought I would want action-packed mysteries that go around the world. I don't know why I thought that, because I have never picked it up, but maybe somebody else will like it. I have a lot of books that are on writing, like how to write your books, because I one day want to be a novelist. But this one, I've never picked up, I'm never inclined to take it, so this is going to go in a little free library. So my day job is a full-time wedding and portrait photographer, and of course, especially early on in my business, I was gifted a lot of photography books. So these are all ones that I loved at one point, but I will never pick them up again. I appreciate the people that gave them to me early on in my career. They definitely helped me out, but I've been doing this for a long time now, and I just don't think I will ever reach for these again. I mentioned earlier that I was an English major in college, and so I of course have acquired too many Shakespeare books, old literature that I thought I would read again, but I have never reached for it. This is one of the worst things I've ever read in my entire life. I do not consider it canon, and I told myself after I read this that I would never see it in real life, but then a year later I ended up going to London and watched it in real life, and although the special effects were really awesome and I adored Draco's relationship with his son, I thought that was really great, the rest of it is not canon in my mind, and I just went to go see a magic show. So this needs to be erased from my eyesight, from my mind, from my existence forever. And I'll put these in to soften the blow for whoever takes it and gets upset by its ending too. More English major books. The problem with having a lot of my books in storage for the past few years is that I didn't always know exactly what I have. So these are unfortunately all duplicates of other versions of Sherlock books that I have. Have I read the other ones that I have yet? No, not yet, but one day I will. I went to a used bookstore and you got 20 of these Maslow paperbacks for $1, and it was like a random grab bag, so you didn't know what you were getting. And they were some of the most atrocious books I have ever read in my life. They were all printed like pre-2000, and some of them were actually really harmful to like feminine stereotypes, and bad. So I read some of them. I attempted to read one of these and I was like, you know what? I don't need this in my brain. I picked this up 2 years ago and I've just never reached for it. I think somebody else will enjoy it more. This one sounded intriguing, but there's a little red flag in the back saying Christian fantasy fans will be particularly enthralled. And that kind of turned me off of it for a long time, and I've just kept it for too long, so it's time to go. I've read maybe 5 books by men in the past 2 years, and they have all been Rick Riordan. I think this could be really important to some youth, but I just haven't reached for it, so I'm gonna put it in a little free library and hope that it finds people that need it. This sounds really fun, and I've never really read middle grade aside from Percy Jackson, so I think this needs to go to a kid that will enjoy it more than I will. 2 more photography books that I loved at the time, but I think can go to somebody else. I'm honestly scared to read this one, so I think somebody else can find more pleasure in it than I can. I found this at a library book sale, and I thought it just looked super cool and totally up my alley, but in the 2 years I've owned it, I've never reached for it, and I just don't think I ever will. There's just too much text in here, and I have too many other fantasy books I want to read first. I got this for $1 and thought I would read it, but then I read The Alchemist, and this reminded me too much of that book, and I never want to think about the book ever again. I really have no inclination to read sad books. More sad books. Although this one is a gift, it was a sad book, so I'm not going to read it. I read this one in college for one of my classes, and it's time for it and its tabs to go. This is back in the time when I was trying to try out other genres, and I just never reached for it. I got these 3 Lisa Jewell books for free in my mom's little library thing, and I was told that they were pretty popular, but I've been holding on to them for a little while now, and I've been too scared to read them, so I think it's time for me to put them back in that little library, and hopefully somebody else will enjoy them more. And lastly here, just some miscellaneous things. So 3,000 Questions About Me that I was gifted like when I was 18, never used it, and in the same vein, The Story of My Life. They both just ask you questions about yourself, and I just never reached for them, so maybe somebody old in my mom's building will enjoy them more. And then lastly, sometimes I find little DVDs in little free libraries, so I'm gonna stick these in there because these are all duplicates for ones I already have, and I feel like these could really make somebody's day. Okay, well that's it for now. That was a lot of books that I don't normally get rid of all at once, so it feels pretty good to be getting rid of 2 overflowing boxes. I am certain that as I go through and I read my physical TBR, I will be getting rid of more books, either because I enjoyed it in the moment, but I will never reread it, or I DNF'd. I'm trying to be more liberal with my DNFing this year. We'll see how it goes. I hope this inspired you to maybe get rid of some books that you've been holding on to for a while, and maybe it will save you from carrying them up and down 3 flights of stairs, keeping them in storage, and all this other nonsense that I've put myself through in keeping these books. So best of luck to you. Thanks for watching.